Hey everyone. Just wanted to go over some of the basics of the testing that we do here at Smoke and Research. So all of our tests are going to be run with Traeger hickory pellets. This is to provide the most consistent result throughout these grills we test to give you comparisons and things like that. I have no connection to the Traeger brand or anything like that. It's just one of those brands of pellets that I feel like everyone out there will have access to. So that's kind of why we went with Traeger hickory pellets. All of these test runs are going to start with an empty hopper and then 2 pounds of these hickory pellets that we'll weigh out on this scale here. So I'll get my 2 pounds of pellets and we'll get it in the scale. So there you go. That's what 2 pounds of pellets is going to be. And I'll take you guys over there so you can see the scale reading 2 pounds. So there's our 2 pounds of pellets. And from there, that's kind of where all of our base runs are going to start. We're going to have 2 pounds of pellets in the hopper off of an empty hopper. That way we can get the most consistent results when we're testing throughout all of these grills we're going to test. There we go. So as always, guys, temperature 1 is going to be our ambient temperature outside. Our temperature 2 probe, grab the wire here. We are going to run inside, and that is going to run our top shelf temperature. So we'll take that, run it under the lid here, and kind of put it in the center of that grate. And then finally, we'll take our third probe. That's going to be our bottom shelf temperature. And there we go. So now with that set up, we're going to let the ambient hang down here by the hopper, and I'll have your top rack and bottom rack temperatures. So we'll go ahead and shut this door. Flip on our grill, and go to the smoke setting. So kind of like when we did the original base run, we're going to let this guy run until we run out of pellets in the hopper. Once we run out of pellets in the hopper, I'll take you back. We'll look at the data from this fireboard, and we'll kind of review and see if this smoker gasket actually helps maintain temperature or anything like that on this grill. One thing I was going to point out before we get too far here is I also did, right here is where the thermocouple or the inner temperature probe goes through. And there was just a hole there that the wire ran through. So I did get some food grade silicone and just ordered it off Amazon, nothing special, and put it over that hole to also block the smoke from coming out of that hole and hopefully prevent some of that air from getting to that temperature sensor. So there we go. We're going to let this fire up, and I'll let you guys see it until we fire up, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I did want to take you on a short journey here while we're billowing smoke out that stack. If you look here, this is where we had most of our problems with the first run at the front of this lid. And you can see we are actually sealed up really nice and tight there. We're not getting any smoke leakage from that seal, and we're holding in that smoke real nice. So I personally, I've done this on all the smokers that I've ever done. Like I said, it's kind of a thing I just do. But we'll run it, and we'll see if this gasket's actually going to help improve performance. Alright, we're back again for our 2-hour update. 167, it's reading about 194. And that's about where we're at with pellets. So we'll see. I'll check back here in another hour and see how much more pellets we got. Okay, so we're back out here running again. And boys, we are about out of pellets here. I'd say she's gonna feed about 2 more times, and we'll be done. So once this finishes feeding, we'll go ahead and we'll get into the fireboard data and start seeing if any of the upgrades we made improvements to the smoker. Starting out with the fireboard data here for our sealed smoke chamber smoke setting run, we're going to start out here with a dual view. So over on the left here is our January 29th session from our base run of the Z grills. And on the right, you have the sealed smoke chamber run at on the smoke setting. So both of these were ran on the smoke setting there. You can see from an outside temperature is about 62 there, and we got up to 64, 65 here. So relatively the same temperature outside, so that's not too much of a factor. But the big difference you're going to see in the data here from the data to the right is on the left, if you look throughout the duration of the cook, our average temperature is higher. So our base run, the average bottom rack temperature, which we can pull the top shelf out. So the average temperature of this bottom rack here was a 188.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can kind of put a line there and you can figure out your average is about right in that area. So on the left, base run, base smoker, no seal is a 188.6 average. Whereas on the right here, as you can see, if you follow this 180 degree line, you can see that average has come down. So again, I'm going to pull the top shelf out of the data on the right here. But with a sealed smoke chamber, when we took all of these numbers and we compiled them and took the average of them, what we saw was an average bottom rack temperature over here was 183.4. So 183.4 is going to give you a 5.2 degree Fahrenheit lower temperature than the base run data. So like I said, comparing to two graphs, we got all the ups and downs still like you expect to see on the smoke setting. But really, after we sealed that smoke chamber up, like I said, we had a 5.2 degree temperature lower than the base run. So that's the big difference you're going to see between the two cook sessions there. Oops. Other than that, we are going to go ahead and blow this session up. So you can see this is our January 31st session. So this is running the smoker sealed with the chamber sealed. So we started that cook at 9:53 and ended at 1:15 p.m. So that gives us about a 3 hour and 8 minute run time here on this grill. So like I said, guys, the definition of run time for me is the first peak of temperature and then when I shut it off. So I shut it off when there are no pellets left in the hopper. So at that point, that is when I shut this grill off. So starting from there, we're going to go ahead and pull up our calculator here. So with the calculator, we'll go ahead and figure some of these temperature degrees out. So from our first temperature, we're going to go ahead and give the grill about 30 minutes of warm-up time. So 30 minutes, we started at 9:53 when we first hit temperature. And we'll go ahead and take it to 10:27. So that gives us, so a little over 30 minutes. 34 minutes. So we'll go ahead and take this as our first temp swing, and then we'll measure the rest of these out. So right here, starting out is a 195.8. So we'll take that minus a 148 here. So that's going to be a 48 degree temp swing right off the bat. Right here we have a 206. And we're going to take that minus 165.5. So we'll call that 41 degrees here. And we'll go 193.5. And we're going to take it minus the 175.7, which is the low there. So that's an 18 degree temp swing. So here we're going to come back up to a 188.5 and down to a 165.8. So that's a 23 when we round up their temp swing here. So now our next one here is a 188.2. And that'll be a minus a 176.5. 5. So that's a 12 degree temp swing there. On that one. So I will go ahead and zoom in here. I am going to note, guys, that if a temp swing is not more than 10 degrees, I'm not going to count that into our average here on our side of Smoke and Research. So all of these little guys here, so you'll see a 183 to a 181, 187 to 183. We're not going to take those to calculate into our average. So if the temp swing's not over 10 degrees, we're not gonna monitor it here. So our next one's gonna be this 189 minus a 176. Oops. So that's a 13-degree temp swing. Next, we get up to 185.6. And 171.8 is kind of the lowest there. So we'll take that 171.8. So that's going to be a 14-degree temp swing. Up here is a 191.6. And we'll call that a 172. So that'll be a 20-degree temp swing here. And we got a 184.5 minus a 168.7, which will be a 16-degree temp swing. So we'll go back through here, 180 to 180, 189 to 185, 194 to 189, not over 10, 192 to 185, that's like 8, still not over 10, 190 to 186, so that's a 4, 192 to 188, so we'll call that another 4-degree. So our next one's really going to be here. So we got 195.1. And we will take that minus our lowest here, which is a 167.5. So that's going to be a 28-degree temp swing. Here we got up to 203.2. And we will take that minus the 165.5. So 38 degrees there. Here we got up to 211.2. Minus a 177.9 is 33. So 204 to 200, it's not going to cut it. That was a 4-degree temp swing. 209.6 minus a 177 is a 33-degree temp swing. And we'll come over here. 191 to 188 isn't going to cut it. 193 to 187 isn't. 189 down to 144. So we're going to go ahead and go with that 189.7 because it did come back up and peak a little bit. So that tells me the fire got a little bit hotter. So I will take that as my high point, which is a 189.7. And we'll go ahead and go down to the 144. So minus 144. So we'll call that a 46. And our final one here is a 193.8. So kind of our final one here is a 193.8. And our low is 175.3. So that was a 19-degree temp. So now we're going to take all of those numbers and we'll go ahead and divide them. So our first temp swing that we recorded was 48, and then it was 41, plus 18, which was the third one, plus 23, plus 12, plus a 13, plus a 14, plus a 20, plus 16, plus 28, plus 38, plus 33 plus 33 plus 46 plus 19, and then we'll take that divided by 15. So that gives us an average temp swing of a 26.8 on the sealed cook chamber. So a 26.8 compared to the average temp swing that we had on the previous session was a 27.4. So a half degree difference in temp swings, which really isn't much of a difference there. So I would say those are kind of even there from an average temp swing perspective. Okay, so an average temp swing here of a 26.8 on our sealed smoke chamber run. Other than that, from other points, our high was a 211.2. The lowest rack temperature we had is over here at that 144. So just some more of those questions there. So going over the final review here. So the Z grills on the smoke setting with a sealed chamber, our run time was 3 hours and 8 minutes. The average outside temperature was 62.5 degrees. The average top rack temperature was 184.6. The average bottom rack temperature is 183.4. The average temp swings on the grill was a 26.8. Our highest bottom rack temperature was 211.2, and the lowest bottom rack temperature was that 144 degrees Fahrenheit. So comparing that to the base run settings that you'll see on the right side of the grill there, or the right side of the screen in front of you. So kind of our improvements here. So really there was no change in run time. Both of them ran for about 3 hours and 8 minutes. The outside temperature was 2.7 degrees warmer than the base run. The top rack temperature was on average 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit lower than what we were on the base run. Our average bottom rack temperature was 5.2 degrees lower than on the base run here for the Z grills. Our average temp swings were a 0.6 different. So 0.6 lower than the base run. Our highest temperature we recorded really is about the same at 211, but our lowest bottom rack temperature actually came down to where we actually got 25.7 degrees lower than our lowest measured temp last time. So looking through those results there, like I said, not too much of a difference from the base run. The biggest advantage you're going to see from this sealed smoke chamber, in my opinion, is going to be your average degrees coming down throughout the cook. Surprisingly, it is a little bit higher than I expected it to be, at almost 5 degrees just for sealing the smoke chamber. But bringing that average down 5 degrees, I would say is a win for sealing up the smoke chamber here on the Z grills. So thanks for joining. Go ahead and tune in next week as we run this grill at a 225 setting, and then we're going to go ahead and add in some more upgrades after that. So tune in next week and see what other upgrades we have coming for the Z grills.